Welcome back. Rejoined by David Brown to talk about our final two teams in our week-long NSIC Spring Football Roundup. We'll start right here. The University of Sioux Falls, a lot of turnover from 2016 to 2017. A playoff, it didn't matter, another playoff berth. But what area of turnover is critical heading into this fall?
Easily the running game, and that's because you're replacing an all-time great in Max Mickey and an underrated great talent in Jason Towns. The two of them combined for nearly 1,900 rushing yards last season, so that's a pretty big void to fill on offense. USF has always been a running team. They're going to need the younger guys to step up. Right now, Winston Maxwell and Colton Miles are the guys they're going to be relying on. Each of them got some carries last season when Max Mickey had some injuries, but they're going to have to play an even bigger role in 2018. USF is banking on that, as rushing is the hallmark of its offensive identity. Winston Maxwell, Colton Miles definitely need to step up.
Well, defensively, USF gave up the fewest yards last season, but they're losing their top 5 tacklers from a year ago. So how do they maintain their status as the top dogs on defense in the NSIC?
Cliche as it is, they've always gone by the next man up mentality, and head coach John Anderson obviously has a defensive background, was the former USF defensive coordinator, so he knows how to craft a scheme. He brought in some graduate transfers last season like Dennis Gardeck, who led the NSIC in sacks. He obviously helped the team immediately, but now it's up to Anderson and defensive coordinator Nick Benedetto to mold the younger players, guys in the line like Stephen McKee, linebackers like Brody Grantham, secondary players like Noah St. Pierre. Who else is going to step up for the Cougars? That's kind of the question, but the consistency of having an elite defense puts even more pressure on the new guys to kind of elevate and raise their game because they're used to being on top defensively.
They are, but it's kind of a culture thing, you know.
Absolutely.
They all know what they need to do. But switching gears back to offense, the QB position is up for grabs, but does it matter who gets the job?
In name only, and that's not meant to denigrate or diminish who the quarterback is eventually going to be, but the basis of USF's attack will always be the ground game and eating up the clock. They don't need to have a prototypical pocket passer who can throw for 300 yards a game. Now, that being said, the battle right now is between Noah Butler and Mitch Martin. Butler was getting #1 reps for most of the spring. He's a little more mobile, as you see right here, than Mitch Martin, and USF has typically done well with a running quarterback like Luke Papillion a couple of years ago, but regardless, the job will be to make the throws when necessary, but also keep the clock moving, just abide by the mentality of run, run, run.
All right, well, finally, we conclude with Minnesota State, team number 16. They lost in the NCAA quarterfinals last season, and they've utilized a 2 QB system over the past couple of years. Will it stay that way?
It will stay that way, and it helps that both QBs from that system are going to come back. That's junior Ryan Schlichte and sophomore J.D. Ikoa. And the reason why the system works is that both guys complement each other. They're both mobile with big arms. Schlichte is more of a traditional pocket passer. Ikoa has the speed to improvise plays. Head coach Todd Hoffner told me earlier this week the reason it works so well is because there's no jealousy. Each knows that they can be successful in the system, and he said they've both elevated their play in the spring. They're challenging each other and processing information better. That's a scary thought for other defenses trying to game plan for both of these QBs.
Well, even more scary, not only are both the QBs back, but the Mavericks' top rusher and top receiver return as well.
Absolutely, and you could make an argument that both of these guys are the best in the NSIC at their respective positions. Let's start at running back. Nate Gunn, transfer from the University of South Dakota, 1,550 yards in 11 games last year, 12 touchdowns, got hurt toward the end of the season, but still averaged nearly 6.5 yards per carry. Justin Taormina, the primary backup, by the way, he had 1,140 yards of his own on the ground. He's back as well. Then you have this guy right here, Shane Zylstra, the reigning NSIC Offensive Player of the Year, 15 touchdowns receiving, impossible to guard one-on-one. All of the core offensive pieces from last year's team are back, and none of them are seniors in 2018 either. So this could be an issue all the way through 2019 as well. Kind of like Minnesota Duluth in the NSIC North, in the NSIC South, Minnesota State, an embarrassment of riches.
Oh my goodness. So offensively, the Mavs, they are elite, but defensively, 2 sides of the ball, how do they stack up?
They can be close to elite, but they're not quite yet. If USF is the best defense in the league, then Minnesota State is a clear #2. They've always been able to have great pass rushers. It was Josh Gordon a couple of years ago. He had a cup of coffee with the Kansas City Chiefs. Last year, it was Evan Parizeau, who had 12 sacks. This year, Coach Hoffner says look for Zach Dodge to elevate his game on the defensive line. There are also great linebackers right here, like you see in Jamie LaPlante, cornerbacks like Jack Curtis. The bottom line is this defense doesn't really need much of a cushion, and with an offense as high-powered as Minnesota State's, they should be able to play with plenty of leads this fall. I think Minnesota State is far and away the best team in the NSIC. They have national championship aspirations, and they also have a solid window to get things done too.
16 teams down.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you for the analysis all week, David. Great
Absolutely.
stuff. All right, coming up next, we'll send it up to West Fargo, where Brian Sean caught up with a local sprint car driver looking to make a splash on the national scene this weekend. You're watching Midco Sports Tonight.